So here's the transmission that I'm going to be removing. Like I said, it's a 727. I just emptied it. I just dropped this pan. And I'll tell you what, I think if you're going to buy another pan, it's going to have a drain plug in it. I started unhooking all the linkage here. The starter is off right there. And you're going to see that the flex plate, this has a SFI flex plate right there. So it's not like your normal flex plate. So that's all unhooked. You can see it used the bigger bolts too. Anyway, that's all unbolted. The bolts are undone around the bell housing. I just have to take the lines off, transmission lines off. After that, we'll take this cross member out here. And then the other thing that I'll probably try to pull out, first I'll take that out. I'll try to get the other transmission in there. The transmission now is completely unhooked. Even the cross member, I just got some bolts just resting in there right now, just holding everything up until I get the jack underneath it. All the linkage has been disconnected. All linkage has been disconnected here. So now it's just a matter of getting a jack underneath it and letting everything come apart. So we're going to go back over here. I took the drive shaft out here. As you can see, that's it. This rear end has straps. Some of them have like U-bolts. My Dana has a U-bolt system in it. But these are good enough for the street, for the amount of power I'm going to be running. The engine in there is probably close to 500 horsepower. It's got a big solid cam in it. It's probably not as efficient as some, but X casting heads, fully ported, two-way valves, etc. So anyway, this rear end would be plenty fine for an automatic, and the power I'll be running. 8 3/4 are actually really strong rear ends. There's been tests done that the 8 3/4 is actually stronger than the 9-inch Ford. The only thing is that the 9-inch Ford has all the accessories now, and everybody's going after them. There's a gajillion of them out there. So anyway, that's that. And one thing I wanted to point out is when I took the drive shaft off, here, I just set it down here in this tray. I taped the universal joint. Tape the universal joint so it doesn't come off. Like that. Just with some blue tape or anything, any kind of tape. I wouldn't use anything too heavy like a, you know, just something that'll hold it on there. So I pulled the transmission out. Here's what I had to do. I undid the torsion bar bolts. You can see right here. When you do that, it's always kind of nice to measure where you were, or you could use a paint pencil or something like that to see where you're at. Give you a good starting point when you go to put this all back together. I had to do that because in the 74 has a separate cross member for the torsion bars. Right here, the torsion bar is sticking out, and it actually goes into a cross member that bolts here. I had to unbolt that. I didn't have to unbolt that to take the transmission out. I had to unbolt that because of getting this new transmission in. And again, this is a 40 46RH transmission. You can see that the tail is a lot bigger than the 727. And of course this is all grubby yet. I am just here to fit it in, is what I'm doing right this minute. After I fit that in, because I know I'm going to have to do some floor work. So I got that other trans out. This trans ready to go. Now my next problem was this exhaust system. I've got this stainless steel exhaust system that I absolutely hate. It's got this H-pipe. The H-pipe comes a couple inches too close to the tail shaft here. So instead of trying to tilt the transmission back and forth, because the transmission is rather heavy and you really don't want to have to tilt it and screw around with it. It's nice if you can go kind of pretty much straight up as much as possible and move it into place. So what I'm going to do is, since I don't like this exhaust system, I am going to actually cut it off, because it's welded all the way back to the tailpipes where the mufflers are. The mufflers I can take off. They're super traps right at the very end. I can take those off. Then I'm going to cut this thing and I'm going to take it out because I don't like it. Then we'll end up having to look at trying to get a different exhaust system in the car. The other thing I'm going to also, if I'm going to do the exhaust, or when I do the exhaust, obviously these headers have got to go. Those things have been driving me, those have been driving me crazy for years also. Those are the original Blackjack AK 5000s. So that's the trans, that's where I'm at, that's what I had to do. Now the other thing I do have to do that I haven't done yet, which is always a good thing to do before you get to this point, and that is get rid of the shifter stuff that's right there. You know, all that stuff right there. Get rid of that. You got to pull that off from the top. I got to unbolt it from the top. But I'll climb up there and do that. Get rid of that. And then I can cut this exhaust off. I have to move everything that's underneath the car because I don't have a big enough garage to do everything. And I will get that all taken care of. Get that. So what you can actually also do is these webs here, you can trim these back a little bit if you need a little bit of clearance. Some of this can be ground down a little bit, you know. These, you know, some of these tabs can be kind of rounded off, or whatever you need to do, as long as it's not too much. I have seen these cut way back. You know, I don't think it's major problem to do that. So here's the 46RH transmission. I have it on this tranny jack. So there's a few things here. I did jack this up into the car a little bit to kind of get kind of a feel for where it was at. Looks like I may have some clearance, but we'll find out when I get it all the way up there. But a couple things I do want to get rid of real quick. This boss right here, I'm going to trim this off. It's not used for anything that I'm going to do. So I want to trim this off. This will give me a little clearance to the tunnel. And then the other thing I'm going to do is on this side, I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to trim this back. Oh, I don't know, probably half, maybe a little more than half of this off. And that's not that major of a deal. I did it to my other transmission too, and it seems to hold up just fine. in case you're worried. The other car that I have is over 600 horsepower, where this one isn't near that. But it's probably between 450 and 500. So anyway, I'm not too worried about this. So I'll trim that. I'll trim the other boss. And then one thing I did want to also mention while I'm over here, and you can kind of see, is this plug right here. I believe, I will confirm that, but I'm almost positive that's the one that you want to hook your like a 1/4 inch line to control your overdrive and lockup. Because the way I'm going to set this up is it's going to be off pressure switches, adjustable pressure switches, so I can adjust where the lockup comes in and I can adjust where the 4th gear comes in. The other thing is going to be hooked to is a vacuum switch, so when you give it gas it drops vacuum, shuts off the overdrive and lockup, and goes down to 3rd gear, kind of like a passing gear idea. But in order to make that work, you have to get pressure off of the transmission. I believe that's the port right there. I will confirm that with my other transmission, but I'm almost positive this is the one. And is what I did with the other one. I put a 90-degree with a compression fitting. I believe it's a 1/4 inch line that I used. I brought that 1/4 inch line out, and I actually brought it over towards the rocker underneath the car, so that way I can adjust that without crawling all the way underneath the car. I can just kind of drive down the road. If I want to adjust it just a little bit, I can adjust it, and that's really good for when you're setting it up. After you get it all adjusted, you probably won't have to touch it again. Other than if you find an irritant on, oh geez, I'm going in and out of overdrive at a certain speed, I seem to be there a lot, then you can, adjust it. It doesn't take that much. So anyway, this is the 46RH going in a 1974 Roadrunner.